to another edition of Be in Health. Today, we're going to be talking about urban farming. I'm your host, Dr. Rachael Coleman. There are so many benefits to growing your own vegetables. There are health benefits. It encourages us to eat healthy. There are financial benefits. We can stretch the budget and spend less at the grocery store. There are community benefits because you can grow vegetables and share them with your neighbors and create community. So today we are going to be talking about urban farming, and to bring some insights to this wonderful topic is certified nurse practitioner Ramona Wright. Will you all help me welcome Ramona Wright?
Thank you. I appreciate you having me today, Dr. Coleman, and I thank all of you for coming out to participate. The topic is urban gardening, urban farming and gardening, so you know that calls for participation. And someone has already told me that they're a gardener, so I'm excited to hear from her. So not only will you give a takeaway, but you're going to be a contributor to the discussion today. So it's awesome to be here with you. So as you can see, you have a few papers there with you. We're not going to read through all of that. You can read it at your leisure. But I just wanted to give a few basic principles for gardening, and hopefully that we can navigate through this and get into the topics of actually how we grow. So in the urban setting, most people are growing food on less than 1 acre of land. Some people may grow on a 50 by 50 or 50 by 25 lot. Some use a patio. Some have no space at all other than their actual apartment. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a successful grower and grow your own food. So we're here today to talk about ways that you can do that. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to be in a family of second generation farmers and people that came off of the plantation and they knew how to grow their own food. It was a foreign concept to them that, people were afraid and didn't know how they were going to eat, or you see panic and people are making a mad rush to the grocery store because it's going to be a storm or something's going to happen, and it's like they're worried about they're not going to have any food and they're going to die or starve to death. So that generation didn't really have those types of concerns because they grew stuff right in their own yard. When they migrated up to the north, they still held on to the cultural traditions of growing food to sustain themselves, their families, friends, and the community. So we're trying to get back to that for those who kind of got away from that. We need to do it because the world has changed a lot. And we have to take control of our own health. And so mainly we're encouraging people to grow their own food for health reasons. Yes, it is easier to just go to the grocery store sometimes, although it's not easier for me because I hate the grocery store. I don't like going there. I would much rather just go and pick something, or pick a few zucchinis and cook them up myself than to make that rush and go down there with all that chaos in the grocery store or at the market. But, sometimes I do because I'm not, a perfect person that has mastered all of the gardening and farming. So there's times when I do go to the market, but when I do, I try to make sure that I'm making healthy choices. And so that's what we want to encourage you to do, to take control. Yes, sometimes it is a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it so that you're not putting toxins, poisons, pesticides, and things in your body. So just be very careful where you shop and the types of vegetables and fruit that you buy. And it's okay to let people know that what they're putting out for you is not acceptable. Because if you keep buying it, they'll keep putting it there, even though they know it's not good and it's not healthy. But sometimes people just tend to go along with it just because you don't want to make waves, but sometimes you don't have to make waves, but you can speak to the issue that we deserve to have high quality of vegetables that we purchase, because the money spends the same. If it's poor quality, the money is going to spend the same way. So, we have to stand up for what's right. So then under the next little dot, you'll see understanding life in plants. Plants are living entities. They're alive. They're living entities. They're not just because it's not maybe moving or you might not see it. That's a little fake one, I think. But a living plant, you may not see the movement, but it's alive. And the roots are taking in nutrients. It's eating. What you put in the soil, or whatever soil that is in there, that's what the plant is getting. So we need to make sure that the plant is getting the proper nutrients. And I can tell you that in Ohio, especially, particularly in the Cincinnati, Ohio Valley area, most of our soil is clay. It's very dense and it's difficult to grow things in the ground. So most people that are doing successful gardening and farming, they're going to do soil amendments because sometimes the clay is like a stone, like a rock. There's no way the roots can penetrate that. Sometimes weeds can, but, for your healthy vegetables, you want a good soil. So when you go buy the soil, you want to get a soil mix. You don't want to just get a topsoil or a garden soil. If you look at the bag, you'll be able to see what's in the bag and what it's got in it. So, but just a regular soil is not going to have the amendments that you need for successfully growing vegetables or fruit or anything. So I want you to look at where it says, what is a plant? And we've already talked about it's a living organism, but a plant, it could be a tree, grass, herbs, ferns, even the moss that grows between the rocks. It's alive. It's a plant. So you want to treat it as such. Now, the human interaction with plants, you'll see that a little bit further down. And when I talk about, botany and ethnobotany, and it's talking about the relationship between human beings and plants. Now, I know that all of us have probably went to a funeral of a human at one time or another. Of the person lived and they died. They had a full life cycle. And so does the plant. The plant is born, you put a plant in the ground, and it sprouts up, it grows, it lives, and then it dies. That's the circle of life. Some plants can live for a very long time. So there's trees out in California that are like over 100 years old, and they're still alive, and they're still, producing. But the life cycle of most plants that we see, the vegetables, their life cycle is not that long. So your growing season in Ohio is going to be April, and then it's going to start closing down, in September, October. You might get a little bit of outside life through November, depending on what you grow, but you have a very narrow window for when you can grow. So it's imperative that you're ready. know what you want to grow, and be prepared. So you can also see down here where I said, figure out what type of growing you want to do. The things that you need to grow something, you need what? A location. You need air, water, sunlight, and a growing media. Your growing media is either going to be dirt, or if you're in, modern science, you can do hydroponics that does not use soil, but you can grow successfully with that. And let's see, I think the rest of it, you can probably just look through it, but just notice that there is a relationship between plants and humans. We learn a lot from plants. We learn about life from plants. People started in the Christian paradigm in the Garden of Eden with plants. And we still have, it's not changed. We have a relationship with plants, and we have a stewardship over plants. We're not just gardeners or farmers. We have a stewardship and a responsibility to help make the ecosystem where plants can thrive. If plants don't thrive, humans don't thrive. If the environment is so toxic and so polluted, and people are building highways coming through farmland, that's going to affect the food of the nation. Because most of the times, people don't, you might find some weeds growing up outside the highway, but it's not. If you take your farmland, if you, destroy the infrastructure and the habitat for plants, you're doing a disservice to the human population of the world. And this happens everywhere. People encroach upon lands and areas that they shouldn't. So, therefore, we have been confined to urban or suburban areas. The United States Department of Agriculture combines urban and suburban in terms of urban farming and gardening. So, because it's still small space. Most people that live in suburbia, it's usually less than an acre of land that they have. It's small space gardening. But you can still be successful and have a place that you can grow. So I'm going to ask Naomi to start that. I have some pictures of some things that I want to show you. So, growing in small food spaces. That means patio, backyard, community garden. Some churches or synagogues have areas, community centers have areas where people that don't have enough space, that if they want to grow more than what they're capable, they can use those areas in community gardening. Okay, so my goal is to share a few basic principles for growing your own food, which we've talked about some, having a small bit of land that we want to use to grow things. Keep going. Next. That won't be before you long. So Rome wasn't built in a day. It took a long time. So with farming and gardening, you want to nourish your soul with patience. Somebody else's garden may not be like yours. You can take this to the max. People spend thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to grow food, or they may have a small space garden, but it is elaborate. Yours doesn't have to be elaborate. It's yours. So someone said, bloom where you're planted. Work with what you got. Start where you are. You can do this. Even if you've never gardened before, never been to a farm in your life, you can grow your own food. You can do it. It's not that difficult. So let's get growing. So, let's back up a little bit. So the things that you need to grow, we talked about you need air, a growing media, water. What else? You need some supplies. So if you're going to be working with the soil, you probably need some little digging tools and a little handheld rake. And then for larger, if you're putting things in the ground, you might need some larger shovels, hoes, and things like that to work the land. And then a watering can. Depending on what your water source is, you may be using a water can. You may be collecting water from your roof and using it to water your garden. You do not have to run your water bill up to thousands of dollars every season to keep your garden healthy and hardy. You can use, if you put some buckets out there, you can collect rainwater and use that to water your plants. You can also get a rain barrel that drains off of the roof or other surfaces into a rain barrel, and you can use that. But you have to have water. How you get it, it's up to you. If you want to collect it, Home Depot sells white buckets. If you sit it out in the rain, it's going to fill up. And you can use that to water your plants. And there's a wheelbarrow over there. It's kind of helpful to have a wheelbarrow because you don't want to be, lifting heavy things, and you want to enjoy your gardening. You want to enjoy farming. You don't want to feel like you've been a workhorse by the end of the day. So, and there's some other tools at the top. You see that saw? And, some little tools there. Because sometimes you can build some things for your garden. You might want to build a little trellis or a little post so that you can do a vertical gardening so your stuff can grow up instead of out. If you don't have much space, you can grow up instead of out. And that you can get a lot more out of your space by vertical gardening. Okay, roll on. Container gardening. These are really nice looking containers. They can roll. So if you're not sure where your sun falls, you can use rolling containers. So if you discover that it's not enough sun, all is not lost. You can move it. Just roll it to another spot. Well, those are food grade bucket containers. That's actually in my garage. You probably have seen white buckets. Home Depot has them. The orange ones are not food grade buckets. I see some people using those, but those are not food grade. Some people say they won't hurt you, but why take a chance? Just get the ones that's labeled for, food grade that you can grow things in. And they only cost about $5. So those are my granddaughter's buckets. They have blueberries and raspberries in them. She started that when she was 4 years old. So she's a junior gardener. She's a junior gardener and a junior herbalist because she made her first batch of peppermint tea this past year, and she sold it. And so this is something that, she wanted to do. I didn't try to, tell her, you got to be a gardener or you got to do this. This is an interest that she had. So an easy way for her to do it was food grade buckets. Next. This is a raised garden bed. This is in some area in my yard. And it has peppers in it. That was going toward the end of the season last year. And it had peppers and I think some echinacea on the other side. But it's on here somewhere. I said, think about your health, your age, your abilities, what kind of support you have. If you know your knees hurt all the time, you don't want to be getting down on the ground and then you're going to be stuck down there and somebody waiting for somebody to come help you get back up. Get a raised bed, that you don't have to go get down on the ground like that. You can actually do it from, a position that's more comfortable for you. Oh. Okay, this is a raised bed. The one on the left is a little bit shorter, so you would have to bend a little bit, but this one on the right, that one is like a 32 to 36 inch. And I would advise that one for a lot of the seniors who still want to garden, and some of them are in their, late 70s and 80s. It's good because they don't, they can do it from a comfortable position. And again, the vertical gardening, those trellises that you see, go back. The trellises that you see off that bed, that's a system for vertical gardening, so that you can grow upward and still have a lot of produce. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. This is another vertical system that you can have. Some people can attach it up to the side of their house, or if it's an apartment, if you have a balcony, you may be able to do it. I would get the landlord's permission first. Then we talked a little about understanding life and plants. Plants need someone to love them and care for them. You probably heard the old timers say they go out in the garden and talk to their plants. There's actually been research to show that the plants do respond, and they understand because of the sound. They measured the actual sound waves, and that's what the plants respond to. So if you are spending time with your plants and you show them love, and if you are around them enough, you'll see when something's not right. It's just like your child. You know when your child gets sick. If you're watching your plants, you know something doesn't seem quite right, and you go over there and start investigating and trying to see, is it getting too much water? Or is it not getting enough nutrients? Is it in too much sun and it's not a plant that needs that much sun? You start checking it out, just like you check out your loved one, and to find out what's going on. We need to fix this. And then, but a part of gardening is you lose some. That's just the reality of life. Just like in human life, you can't save them all. And as people in healthcare well know, you can't save them all. You give it your best, you do your best, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you might lose a plant. It might break your heart, but there's more. You have more plants that you can still focus your love and care and provide what they need. So in your paper, I talked about the roots and the nutrients, photosynthesis. Your plants absorb chemicals from the soil. That's why it's so important that your soil is enriched with nutrients, because if it's not, they're going to die. So they need the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the calcium, the minerals and things that humans need, they need it too. They just get it in a different way. So when you water your plants, you allow those minerals to be absorbed into the roots of the plant to go throughout and nourish the entire plant. Now, when you start your garden, if you go out and dig up that clay soil and try to plant some plants in that clay soil, you're going to have a funeral. It's not going to make it. So, plants are alive. They need someone to love and to care for them. And it's when I talked about, you'll see where I mentioned biodiversity, that's a part of that. You take what you need from Mother Earth. Sometimes plants suffer and the ecosystem is thrown out of whack because people go crazy with trying to mass produce plants for reasons that they don't really need the plant. They just want the money. And so, but it throws the ecosystem out of balance. And then after a while, you'll be seeing a shortage of that plant, or is no longer able to grow in nature because it was abused. The system was abused. So as urban farmers and gardeners, we take what we need and we support each other, but we don't go crazy with it and just, I need to make $1 million off of this plant. Excuse me. And people have done that. There's an urban gardener that made multi-millions of dollars off of one plant. I'm not opposed to people making a lot of money. By God, the Lord needs your money. But, just be a good steward. Okay. So what do we need to grow food? We need a location. Air, water, sunlight, and a grow media. So I use cocoa coir. Some people use peat moss. I do a 3-3-3 with cocoa coir, compost, and vermiculite. Because you want the vermiculite because it's going to aerate the soil and keep it light so that your roots can actually grow and press through the soil. Choose your gardening method that fits your space and your goals. Do you want a soil-based garden? Do you want to do hydroponics? Do you want to do vertical farming? Consider your available space and work with what you have. In the future, you might end up getting a multi-acre plot of land. But if you don't have that right now, don't let that stop you. All right, plan to share. It's like all the animals in the forest want your stuff. So this deer came out in my yard. I mean, he just had a good time. He would eat up everything, not just the vegetables. He'd eat up the hostas, everything, and he just felt like it was his property, it's his land, and it is his land. So I had to put a fence around the area that I wanted to use because he was made to roam free. They was made to, live off the land and eat like that. So, I'm not the kind that'll go shoot him. I just want him to stay off my stuff so I can eat it. So you can put up a fence or you can use liquid fence. They sell liquid fence at the store. It's kind of expensive. I make up my own liquid fence. So that's a simple recipe that you can use. You got 2 eggs, 4 cloves of garlic, you crush it up, mix it all up together, and you put a little bit of dish soap in there because you want it to actually stick on the leaves so that they'll taste it and they won't like it. You would mix it with a gallon of water, and you can use a pump spray bottle for that. But you want to mix it up, and you want to wait about 48 hours. Reason why you want to do that, because that stuff is going to stink. That egg is going to rot, because that's what they sell you with. That's what liquid fence is. That big bottle you get from Home Depot is rotten eggs, garlic, onions. They don't like it. They don't want to eat it. So if you use that, the deer stay away. Only problem is, if it rains real good and they wash it off, you got to spray it again. But you can deal with that through your growing season, or, as I mentioned, just get a fence. Little rabbits. Those little creatures just live in my yard. Ridiculous. They climb in the pot. They go for roots and things. They just love roots for some reason. They'll go dig in the pot and try to, even if there's none in there, they'll try to find them. So you can partner plant things around your vegetables that will help deter these little pests. So I use French marigolds. I have some lavender in my yard, and I take the garlic and I just put garlic all around the perimeter of the yard. I slice it so you can, and stick it right down in there in the perimeter, so they can, be deterred, because they're gonna come. I'm telling you, they believe that this land is theirs, and if you put some food there, they're gonna eat it, unless you do something to prevent it. So you can do netting, eat those. When I put those food grade pots outside, I cover them with a netting. I have like a fence that I cut the fence and then tie it together and put it around there, like to protect from those little creatures, because they can do some damage. I think they can do more damage than the deer, really. All right. So this is a hydroponic system. I have yet to do any hydroponic gardening, but my nephew he loves hydroponic gardening, and that's what he does. And we'll be trying to get him in for a session on hydroponics. Okay. So you can click on that, the link. The first link is an urban growers resource from the USDA farmers.gov, and that has a wealth of information that you can actually access, and you just have to click and click on it, and it'll open up the link. And then those 4 resources, you can look at them at your home also. But okay, go back. Okay, so the Vigo Garden, they have the raised beds. And then the almanac, the Farmer's Almanac, is a really good resource, and that I use. They just have a lot of factual information, and they have a free garden guide for beginning gardeners if you log into their site. And then this last link is from YouTube. There's really a lot of really good videos on YouTube for gardening, with a lot of tips and things that you can use. So that video is James Prigioni. He's up in New Jersey area, but he has the recipe that I just talked about, making your own garden soil. He shares about that because he's done it on his garden, and he uses about the same recipe. I think he uses cocoa coir. He might use sphagnum peat moss. So you probably heard a lot about, because that was traditionally used a lot, the peat moss as a soil mixture, because it helped moisturize the soil and lighten it up, because when you're dealing with this clay soil, you have to do something to make it where it's not so thick and dense. So the cocoa coir, or peat moss. Happy Frog is a type of compost that you can buy from the store. You can make your own compost. If you have, like, I have a pretzel jar on my sink that I put food scraps in, and if you save your food scraps, by the time the next season comes around, if you put those outside in a compost bin or a garbage can. I had mine in a garbage can, but that was a mistake because some nice person came and tried to help me and threw out all the compost. And I was like, where is my compost? I worked so hard on that compost. So, just know that you can buy Happy Frog, or Black Cow is another common one that is, has a good compost mixture. What is happening is the worms are decomposing and eating and causing decay, and that breaks down all those elements so that your plant can have nutrition. That's where it comes from, the good old worm. So now you don't have to pick up the worm or touch the worm, but just know that in that ground, that's what they're doing. And that's what organic gardening is. That's what we do. We want to have the natural, organic substances for our plants to eat. We don't want to go buy some type of fertilizer that's chemical, that's a man-made situation. You may do that, but it's not ideal. You can do it with organic material. So if you cut grass, mulch your leaves, put them in the pile, let nature start to work on them. I can guarantee you will have a good compost pile with, you just have to keep it aerated and let the worms do what they do. And then the same thing with people. I thought, okay, well, someone told me, they said, beautiful is the death of the saints. This is a religious type slogan thing that people say. And I really thought about it. I kept trying to toss it over in my mind. I was like, that is not nothing beautiful about death. I mean, even when they fix you up, the best mortician, they make you look good. But eventually the worm is going to do what it does. And so the scripture says, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of the saints. It didn't say it's going to be beautiful. It's precious because it's looking at it on another level. So you're looking at life on a whole different plane. You're seeing life in a whole nother level when you work with plants. So you might lose some, but it's okay. God's going to make it up to you. You're going to get a harvest. You might lose one, but he's going to make it up to you. So I, don't have anything else except for one thing I wanted to bring to your attention that I really want you to take a look at is plastic. We're being filled up with plastic. People put everything in plastic. Try to avoid plastic if you can. If you can. And that's telling you some of the harmful things, that the effects of plastics and why we do organic gardening. And I don't know if I covered everything we needed to talk about, but you can sweep it on in and hit the highlights.
I thought that was Excellent, excellent presentation. Yes, let's give her a round of applause. And we're going to take some questions. Does anyone have any questions about getting started, how to grow? Any questions at all, or anything specific about her presentation?
I don't
Okay.
understand how the vertical garden works.
The question is about vertical gardening. Can you expound a little bit more about vertical gardening and how perhaps she can get started
Well,
with that?
vertical gardening has many different systems that you can use. And basically what it's doing is instead of growing outward like that, you're stacking the plants and you're putting them in a row above each other. Or if it's a plant that has vines, you're letting the vines grow up instead of out. So I would use watermelon as an example. Watermelon, it has a lot of leaves, a lot of vines. If you had a watermelon patch, it would be like it could sprawl all over the place. But if you grow it vertically, you don't need all of that space because you're gonna let that vine go upward, and then you're gonna be tying it or holding it with trellises, and so your watermelon is not going to be all over the place, or depending on where you live, the little critters can eat up a whole patch of watermelon. And so if they're growing vertically, they're more protected, and you can use a smaller space. But it's just basically putting them in a row, or if it's a vine, you shoot the vine upward with some support so that it's not going everywhere. It's just going upward.
Would that be the same with potato plants? Of course, I'm trying to grow some potatoes this year. I know the potatoes in the ground, but there's a lot of vining. Is there a way to kind of deal with that in a small space?
Well, you can, but with the leaves of the tomato plant, it's not potato. It doesn't matter that much because you're not going for the leaves.
Okay.
You're going for the roots.
Okay.
So it usually with the potato, it doesn't get that bushy or big, but you can trim it. You can trim those leaves back. It's not going to do anything to the potato.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so I know you mentioned the liquid fencing.
Hold on one second. Let me give you the mic.
I know you mentioned the liquid fencing, and you mentioned deer and rabbits. Would that be a good deterrent for the majority of all little creatures, animals?
Well, I couldn't put my hand on the Bible on it, but it seems to work pretty well. I've used it for raccoons, groundhogs, and rabbits and squirrels. So that's all I've used it on, and then with the deer.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Hold on.
I've heard of composting. How far away from your house is it good to put a compost pile?
Well, it just depends on how much space you have. If you have enough space, it's good to put it, maybe 50 feet or 30 to 50 feet away because you don't want to smell it. But if you don't have that, you can still put it in a container where it's enclosed, and you just have to go out and rotate it and turn it so that it gets aeration so that stuff can get broken down. But you go by what you have. If you cannot do it, if your space is limited that you cannot do it, it's not a crime to go get some happy frog or some black cow. It's okay if you have to do that because it's organic.
Any other questions?
I was writing down the mixture that you had mentioned on the screen, and I didn't quite get all of it.
On the screen,
Yes.
well, the 2 eggs, and then the garlic, cloves, and the dish soap is just to make it stick on the leaves. And then you mix it with water, and then you set it there. I mean, it's not an exact mixture. You can vary it however you want to, and then you can make more or less of it, that you want to. And sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do, you can put a little cayenne pepper in there, and that'll keep stuff from, especially those little rabbits and squirrels. They have tons of recipes like that on the internet. You just type in liquid fence. People share their different recipes that they've tried.
When you're using the liquid fence, on average, how often do you have to go back out and apply it again? So do you find yourself going out weekly or every few days?
No, it depends on the weather, but if it doesn't rain, I've easily gotten 3 weeks out of it. And, but if it rains, it might still be okay, but I don't take chances.
Any other questions?
Does anyone want to share about their garden and where they are in their gardening adventure?
Did anyone have a garden last year? And if you did, what did you grow? And how did you use it or consume it? Or did you just let the animals have it?
I was experimenting last year and growing some items inside. I think I shared with Michelle. I had took a potato, and it was starting to sprout, so I stuck it in a flower pot inside the house that I had, and it started growing, and it was doing pretty good, but I wasn't able to continue to take care of it, so it didn't last long. I had some green onions. I cut the bottoms off and put them in a pot, and it started growing beautifully. I also had took the tops off of pineapples, put them in water. They're still sitting there, but they're getting roots, so I need to put them in some water. I've tried celery, cut the bottoms off of celery and put it in some water, and it started growing, and I wasn't able to finish it, but at least I started, so I will do better this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I will say that you have to be careful where you go to the grocery store, because some grocers and some producers, like, you can propagate anything. You can propagate your vegetables, but if they sell it to you without the root, you can't propagate it. So some markets that you go to, and you see how they cut those greens off, and it's like barely nothing there. It's just a sprout. You want to get it where there's some root there, so you can, put it in the ground. That way you can, grow more. And you also want to look for heirloom varieties, because if it says hybrids don't always reproduce. So if you try to grow it, you might get it for one season, but those heirloom varieties is what you're going to get those seeds from, or you're going to propagate, and they'll just keep coming, and it saves you a lot of money, so you're not buying seeds every year, or you're not, going out and buying plants from the nursery all the time.
Is there any tip or trick to help, like in a raised garden bed? I don't have deer that's in my backyard. I don't have rabbits that would jump that high. I don't think. But last year, I think it was insects that ate up my greens. So is there a way to, a healthy, I don't want to say pesticide, that would shield it from the worms so that I can have more leaves?
Well, that's a hard one, because certain cabbages, greens, and things like that, the cabbage worm will eat them. And so what you can do is use netting to keep them from coming onto your plants. And the other thing you can do is a dish soap. that's one of your best insecticides is soap. And so you want to spray it so that, if you see or notice that those worms are coming, try to make it so they don't want to eat it.
Okay, okay. I know last year I also grew some peppers, and that was bell peppers, and to me that was one of the easiest things to grow. And I buy bell peppers from the grocery store, so it was nice to when I needed one, just go out back, and get my bell pepper to go, in my meatloaf or whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
it's really nice. I can attest to that.
So what we thank you all for being so attentive. Are there any other questions that you would have? Yes.
I'm not a gardener, and I tend to kill plants and different things because by overwatering. So my question is for someone who is not, it's like a beginner, like, because I like to overwater certain things. So what would be a good fruit or vegetable that I can plant that water wouldn't be an issue if it's outside or inside?
Well, you can buy a hygrometer so you can measure the hydraulic pressure, the water in your plant. But, I would just say start paying close attention to if it's sopping wet, it's too much. But yeah, it's a delicate balance, But if it's happening a lot, then you probably just too much on the water.
So I'm more of a flower. I did plant a sweet potato vine, and it was so big that I had potatoes about this size.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I mean, it kept growing and growing and growing, but I'm more into the flowers. Because I know one thing about flowers is they sleep, creep, and then they leap, especially the perennials.
I didn't catch that.
Sleep, creep, and leap.
Oh, okay.
So if it's a root in there, it's gonna come back. And when you think it's dead, I absolutely love gardening. I haven't did food though. But it's true what you said, and I found something that's organic. It's the mushroom organic.
Oh, yes. That's
And I
good.
tried it this year in my little, what you call that little thing that you roll around. I put some of that in Miracle Grow, and my flowers have taken off.
Yeah,
And it was the
it makes a
peat
difference.
moss.
The soil makes a huge difference.
And they do talk to you. They really do. So I just want to share that.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more other thing. You were talking about how it's equivalent to the Bible. I don't know if anybody ever read the scriptures talking about the sower of the seed, and it falls on good ground. And sometimes when it falls on the ground, sometimes it's choked up.
Yep.
That is so true in planting. But if you have a good soil, it'll bring forth a harvest. And that's in regular planting or in food. If your soil is not good, it's gonna die. But those weeds, the Bible talks about that, they gonna grow, clay or whatever. And I think it's amazing because you can learn a lot about just planting flowers, food. It has a spiritual connotation
It
to it.
does. And then, you also having plants that are non-vegetables and things, they're complementary. They help to keep pests away from your garden. Like I love flowers too, but I buy a lot of marigolds, or I do the seeds. The seeds sprout so easily if you get them from the seeds, but I didn't get any seeds. I didn't save them, so I had to go buy some. But you gotta have some French marigolds in your garden to keep those pests away.
So my name is Michelle, and the key takeaway, which I did not realize, is that you don't need a whole lot of space to grow your own food. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You can start off simple, and you just do what you can do. And there'll be failures, perhaps, and there'll be successes, but the success seems to outweigh the failure.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and my key takeaway is encouragement. I am encouraged to get back out there and start my little gardening all over again, even though it's inside my home to start with, but I'm encouraged to get back and do that again.
And so we appreciate you all being here today. We have gifts for everyone to help you in your planting journey. You get to choose your own live plant and a grow bag and some additional farming aids. I know you want more, but that's all for now. And until next time, be in health.